Professor Roger Spragg received his medical degree from the University of Rochester. He received further training in internal medicine and pulmonary and critical care medicine at UC San Diego and joined the UCSD Department of Medicine faculty in 1976. His research interests have focused on mechanisms of acute lung injury, with particular emphasis on biology of the lung surfactant system. He retired in 2006, although he continues to consult, provide review for medical journals, mentor medical school faculty, and coordinate the Emeriti Association Book Club. He and his wife reside half the time in Whitefish, Montana, enjoying the wide variety of outdoor activities available there.
Can you please talk about your first introduction to Chancellor Scholars?
Sure. I think I remember this accurately, but it's going back a little bit in time. I retired in 2006, and I did several different things for a year or so, but I wanted to stay connected with the university. And I knew that there was a Emeriti Association. And so one day I stopped by the Emeriti Association office and met Suzanne Chaffee at the retirement center. And we had a wonderful discussion. And I think she viewed me as a potential victim for involvement in the Emeriti Association. And that was great. And I learned from her about the various programs that the Emeriti Association had, including the Chancellor Scholars program and the mentoring of the Chancellor Scholars. And that sounded pretty interesting. So at that time, Jack Fisher was heading up that program, and I arranged to have a lunch with him, and we did. And we met at the faculty club and spent a good hour talking about the program and how it functioned and some of the benefits of it. And that was my introduction.
That's cool. So obviously you are my mentor. And so what actually motivated you to become an Emeriti mentor?
I think I saw it as being able to do a couple of things. One was to maintain an involvement in the university, both by meeting with students, but also by interacting with other faculty members, retired faculty members who had been active in the faculty and were now functioning as faculty mentors in the program. And that was, and there were two things about that then that would give me a deeper understanding of UCSD than I had had just by being active in the medical school. Because my only exposure to undergraduates was through some folks that had worked in my laboratory. And that wasn't really very much. And this gave me, both by interacting with Chancellor Scholars and also with faculty members from outside the medical school, a way to kind of broaden my understanding of UCSD and specifically what undergraduate life was like. And that was something that was attractive to do, and it really has been fun to do because it let me get a good window into what life is like as an undergraduate.
Yeah. This is a question that I'm actually personally curious about. So as you were like interacting with undergraduate students, what were some of the things that you've learned?
What were some of the things that I've learned? One thing is that I've learned how tough it is. I mean, UCSD is not an easy school by any stretch of the imagination. And I've learned how hard kids have to work to do a good job and succeed. That's one thing. A second thing I've learned is the breadth of opportunity that's available to kids if they reach out for it. It seems to me it can be overwhelming. And it's something that I'm always engaged with in mentoring students, is to figure out what elements in the UCSD experience might work well for them. I don't know them all, but I can suggest a little bit ways that they can find out more and help them to do that. So I think those are a couple of things I've learned.
Yeah, you've definitely helped me a lot on that end. And I was also wondering, was this decision to become an Emeriti mentor and be part of like the Chancellor Scholars your own like personal decision? Did your wife, Carole, have any input on it as well?
Well, I think you probably are talking both about the mentoring experience as well as the decision to fund a Chancellor Scholarship.
Mhm.
And in the first, I think Carole was certainly enthusiastic about my figuring out ways to stay engaged with the university. And in the second, the decision to fund make a major gift and fund a scholarship was very, very much a joint decision. And it kind of reflects the value that we put on education and in in paying it forward and trying to make education available and possible for people in the next generation.
Yeah, I hope also to become a mentor later on. But did that make does making the major like scholarship gift correspond with your core life values as well?
I think very much. I grew up in a educated academic faculty. My father wasn't in medicine, but was a university professor. And I think from the time I was a very little child, academics were held up as something important to engage in and to support. So it's very much a core life value to support education.
Great, thank you so much. And then I guess my next question is it important to mentor the recipient of your donation to see like the positive effect that it has on them?
I would say no to that. I would be interested, we are interested, both of us, to see the progress of the folks that have benefited from the gift that we've given. But I think I would prefer not to mentor that person, because it seems to me, it's a little hard to express this, but maybe a little bit putting some pressure on somebody, because not only am I just giving them advice, but I don't want them to feel as if they need to take the advice because they're benefiting from the gift that we've given. In other words, it ought to be a little more of a neutral relationship where I'm giving advice, but they might go and get advice from other people, and it may not always be the same, and maybe somebody else's advice would be better to take than what I'm giving them. And I don't want to confuse those two relationships. We have in pre-COVID days gotten together a couple of times a year, just socially for lunch with the folks that we've supported, just to kind of put in both directions, put a human face on the relationship and to see how the kids are doing. And that's been really fun, but I think it's good to keep the relationships a little bit separate.
Okay, understandable. And how do you see scholarships as like leveling the playing field?
Well, I guess the way I would see that is that there are folks who might not have the opportunity to attend a school like UCSD, and getting a scholarship can tip the balance, can make the difference, and allow them to come to UCSD, where people at a more privileged end of the playing field may not quite need that help in order to be able to come here.
Mhm. And in terms of like the UCSD itself, why do you think that major scholarship donations are important for UCSD?
I think for being able, kind of relates to the last question. I think for being able to attract students to UCSD who may be very qualified, but just not be able to swing it financially. And if this really makes the difference, that's very important.
And in terms of like the students, what impact do you think the scholarship donation is having on students?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that deeply. I think one impact is what we just talked about, and it helps the kids to be able to come. The other thing that I think I'm hearing from at least some students, not necessarily ones we've supported, but in general, is the impact on their families of the financial support, and how families that may be really struggling to get together the money that the family is required to come up with are relieved by the presence of the scholarship, and feel this at a family level, and that it can make a pretty big difference. And I think that that's probably something that Carole and I hadn't really thought about much until we heard some of the kids expressing this.
Yeah, my family can definitely attest to that.
Is that right?
And what is it?
I was saying, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, there are like a lot of, obligations that my parents have. And like I have an older brother too who went to college. And so like my brother didn't get, scholarships when he went to UCLA. But like I got it here. And so they don't really have to worry that much about me and like my education. And so they're just happy that I'm here and like trying to like explore as many and take advantage of as many opportunities as possible. But yeah. And
that's
then
wonderful.
What is it?
I was saying that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, my parents are very happy. And then I guess the next question would be like, how have you seen your scholarship recipients and I guess your mentees as well grow and like evolve over their college years?
Well, that's one of the real fun parts of this, is seeing kids who are pretty undifferentiated, both intellectually and socially, mature tremendously in both of those spheres over a short number of years. And I think back to my first mentee, probably 11 years ago, who was a very wonderful, shy, nervous Asian lady who was uncomfortable relating to me as a older Caucasian male professor. And we would meet for lunch, and she was, I think it was initially quite painful for her to be in that situation. And over the next few years, she just blossomed, both in self-confidence, socially. She did well in school. She wound up getting a scholarship to Rady, and then doing a internship in Israel. And I got an email one day where she was telling me about her bungee jumping in Israel. And it was just a sort of a sign of the growth that she had. I think that she was out there bungee jumping in a foreign country. And it was fun to see. And we've stayed in touch. And just a year ago, I think she commented to me in an email that she was really doing well and having fun, but she still was finding it challenging to negotiate salary with the people who were supervising her. And I didn't know really what to tell her, but I knew who to talk to. And I talked to some women that I know through the medical school, and they said, yeah, this is a problem. It can be a particular problem for women. And and you need to take a course in one way or another. It's not where you can, it's not so good to read a self-help book and then go out and do this. You need to role play, you need some experience and some feedback. So I could feedback that information to her. And she went out and got some experience, and I think it helped her. But it was fun for me to have the ongoing relationship with her over quite a few years now, and to feel that she could still turn back to me and look for some advice, and that I could at least make my best effort to try to do something that would help.
That's awesome. Bungee jumping in Israel also sounds.
I was so proud of her. I am. Yeah.
It's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
And then, are there any particular things that you have discussed with your scholarship recipients that they went off and accomplished? I guess this like leads on from, your first mentee too.
Yeah, I think the discussion we just had is a good example of that she picked up on some of those things. I would say that, and maybe this is a little bit of a digression, most of the folks that I've mentored have done very well. And there are a couple who have really struggled. And there was one fellow who came in, wanted to be pre-med, and it was just not a good fit for him. It didn't fit for his skill set. He wasn't as committed to study as he was to some other activities, which was okay, but pre-med was just not a fit for him. And college was a pretty tough fit. And he lost his scholarship, and we had formed a relationship, and I continued to maintain a mentoring relationship with him. And he wound up with advice both from me and from others, graduating and then going on and getting his teaching certificate. And he's teaching science in high school, and it's a perfect fit for him. He's very happy doing it. He has a personality that just resonates with the kids. And from the point of view of the Chancellor Scholars program, it'd be tough to say he was a success because he lost a scholarship, he washed out. Personally, I felt it was a success because first of all, he did graduate, and that was good. And secondly, he wound up in a wonderful profession where he can make a difference and where he's feeling, I think, satisfied and happy with his accomplishments.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of more like nuance behind the program as well. It's not just like restricted to the campus or like to the 4 years of college that you're attending, but it could like extend beyond that. And I'm glad that he's doing well.
Yeah.
Are you still in touch with him?
No, we probably haven't communicated for a couple of years, but I would have no problem reaching out and just saying, hey, how are you doing? And having had this conversation with you today, I think motivates me to do that. And I think it would be fun to hear, and I think he'd probably get a kick out of it too.
Yeah, let me know how it goes.
Okay.
And then my next question is, do you have anything to say to anyone else who may be considering making a gift to a Chancellor's Scholarship?
Well, that's a little bit of a tough question because I don't feel in a position to give other people advice about what they should do with their finances and so forth. I can just say that both for Carole and me, it's been a very, very rewarding experience. We've reached a stage in our life where we're able to do this, and it feels very good. I think we believe in the concept of tithing and trying to give back as much as we can to benefit society. And this feels to us like a very good way to do that.
Great. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think I'd like to tell people how well you're doing and how proud we are of what you've accomplished.
I'm glad.
It would be hard for anybody to be more successful academically than you have been, and also to be engaged in all of the different activities that you've been engaged in. And it's really a pleasure to be able to discuss all these issues with you today.
Yeah. Same here. And I feel like this basically made my day.
Oh, good. Good.
Yay.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss this.